Hello, everybody. This is Mike, and once again, back with the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. Beth is not with me today. She will be back very soon. We just have so much going on. We've had a very busy weekend. We've talked about we have one of our adult children is moving out. The other adult child is moving back in. And so it's been kind of a chaotic weekend, a chaotic week, but this is just going to be kind of a quick pop-up podcast just to talk about a couple of things. And then once Beth and I have a moment of peace, then I think we're going to sit down and record one. So there may be a second podcast coming this week, but you'll know soon enough. Especially if you subscribe, then you'll know exactly when these podcasts are coming on. But we did have a very, very busy weekend. I got to perform at the Friends of Stokes Shelter Gala, which was a blast. I'll wait till Beth's here and we can kind of unpack that a little bit more, but we had an absolute great time. I got to visit one of my friend's churches Sunday morning. A guy by the name of Jeff Barnes. His church knows him as Pastor Jeff or Pastor Barnes. I know him as Coach Barnes. Jeff Barnes was my high school psychology teacher. I have been out of high school for 34 years, so we go way back. So Coach Barnes, I graduated from Southern Guilford High School here in Guilford County, North Carolina. He was track coach, football coach. He taught, I believe, U.S. history and psychology, and I had him for psychology. And I was not a good student. I was probably one of the students he disliked the most, I would say. I just made his life miserable just with my antics and foolishness as a teenage boy in high school. But Coach ended up, after I graduated, he ended up changing schools. He went to a school in Kernersville, North Carolina, which is where we now live. And then after he retired from teaching, he became pastor at a local church here in Kernersville. And he and I reconnected, and it's been great. And so we've become good friends. It's remarkable how God can keep kind of certain relationships intertwined. When I graduated, I didn't think I'd ever see Coach Barnes again. And then this past Sunday, I was at his church, and he had me stand up and speak for about 7 or 8 minutes about our Hope Center. That's our facility that we provide free food, free clothing, free counseling to the community. And he just wanted me to share that with his congregation. So it was awesome to share the stage, to share the pulpit with my former teacher, and just the love and the respect that I have for him now. And so that was a true blessing. And then I had a chance to get away. So I am at an undisclosed location in the mountains of North Carolina, and that's where I'm going to be for just a couple of days. I'm going to head back home probably Tuesday evening, because Wednesday I'm going to be working at the Wyndham Championship. That's the big PGA event that comes to Greensboro every year. I believe it's been coming there since like 1934 or something. It's one of the longest running, continuous running tournaments on the PGA schedule that's not a major tournament. And so I've always wanted to volunteer. I love going to golf tournaments. I love it. I know some people find golf incredibly boring. I love golf, and I enjoy playing golf. I'm terrible at golf, but I do enjoy playing. But I love watching it, and I love going there live. And so I've been to a lot of tournaments in my life. I've always wanted to volunteer at one. And so a friend from my church, he volunteers at the Wyndham each year, and he encouraged me. So I went ahead. I thought, why not? I'm on sabbatical. I got some free time. Let's do it. So I filled out the volunteer form, and they assigned me the role of standard bearer. And so what that means is I'm going to be assigned a group of golfers, and I will walk with that group of golfers, these professionals, and I'll be holding the sign that has their scores on it. So that's my job, and I'll be doing that Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Was the first alternate for Friday, but the gentleman in charge called me and was like, hey, you're the first alternate. We had somebody drop out. I wanted to give you a chance to work Friday, but I'm going to tell you, doing this for 4 straight days is exhausting. And because we're walking the whole golf course. We're walking what these golfers walk. And I'll probably walk 6 or 7 miles, in those couple of hours that I'm following around these golf guys. So I went ahead and took his since I'd never done it before, I just went ahead and took his advice and said, I'll pass. And so I'll be doing a Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, and Saturday afternoon. I'll be inside the ropes of the PGA Wyndham Championship in Greensboro at Sedgefield Country Club, which, as fate would have it, it's about 7 minutes from where I grew up. So I've never been to Sedgefield, even though it was right down the road from my house. It's a private country club. Obviously, we were not country club people, so I've never been. So I'm excited to see Sedgefield. I'm excited to be in between the ropes, walking with these golfers. There's some big names that are going to be there this weekend, and hoping that I get on one of their groups. And it's going to be pretty exciting if I do. But I had a question posed to me that I did want to talk about today. And it was, when we went to the gala this past Saturday night, we had some friends of ours that bought tickets and came, and primarily because they knew I was doing comedy, and they wanted to come and support me and hang out with Beth, and they're big animal supporters, and they've got they have a rescue dog themselves. And so they were, all behind what Friends of Stokes Shelter was doing. And so they ended up, them and the husband's brother and his wife came. And so and me and Beth, so the six of us had a table to ourselves, and we just had an amazing evening, just hanging out and laughing and just having a great time, even outside of what little 15-minute comedy bit I did. But the wife, we'll call her Sue. Sue asked me, she said, now you say you're an introvert. Like, I even do a bit in my comedy routine, one of my bits that I'll do sometimes, where I talk about how Beth and I are very different. I talk about how I'm an introvert and she's an extrovert. And I go through some funny comparisons in that. But Sue was like, you say you're an introvert. Like, how do you get up on stage? How do you do comedy? How do you get up and preach? Like, how do you do these things? Like, if you're an introvert. And the best way I can explain it is this. I am what they call a social introvert, where I can be social. I can be up in front of people. I can be around people. The biggest difference in introverts and extroverts is where you get your energy. An introvert and extrovert may enter a room with the same energy, but as the night or day goes on, the extrovert is going to get more and more energy from being around people, and the introvert is going to get drained and have less and less. So, for example, after Saturday night, Beth and I were driving home, and Beth was just like bouncing off the walls of the car. She's like, oh, that was so much fun. It was great hanging out with everybody, and I love this, I love that. And I mean, and I was just like, I just want to get home. Like, I was just totally drained. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to remember when it comes to introverts and extroverts is it's not about being around people if we can or can't. It's what being around people does to us. And for Beth, it gives her energy. For me, it drains me. But I can do it. I enjoy people. I like people. I'm going to dig in a little bit. We did a whole series on the Enneagram. Beth and I are big backers and believers of the Enneagram. You can go back and listen to some of our podcasts. We did a couple of standalone episodes where we talked about the Enneagram and broke it all down by number and by triads and healthy, unhealthy, and all that kinds of stuff. I am a 1. I'm an Enneagram 1. I am a perfectionist. When I'm a healthy 1, that's good. That means I'm striving just for some excellence, and I want things to be perfect, and I'm an improver. When I'm an unhealthy 1, that's when I become kind of this micromanager where it's got to be my way. It's got to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then I beat myself up over it. So every number has a healthy and unhealthy side. We obviously want to live on the more healthy side, but sometimes life happens and we drift to the unhealthy. And I'm not going to rehash the whole Enneagram, but besides that, when you're in a good place, your number, who you are, a 1, say I'm a 1, it connects with another number, and you're the best of them also. So, for example, an Enneagram 1, when they're in a good spot, when they're healthy, they can mimic the behaviors of an Enneagram 7. when they're at their best. And so an Enneagram 7 is the enthusiast. It's the person that loves to be the life of the party. They love being around people. And so when I'm in a good place, when I'm who I am as an Enneagram 1 and I'm a healthy Enneagram 1, I can mimic a healthy Enneagram 7. And by being an Enneagram 7 and being a healthy Enneagram 7, that allows me to get up on stage, to do jokes, to do a sermon, to be around people, that kinds of things. When I'm an unhealthy one, I drift to another number. I want to say I don't have it, 4 or 5, and I'm an unhealthy 4 or 5, whichever one it is. I don't have the graph in front of me, and I should know this. But I become kind of reclusive. I just kind of keep to myself. I get kind of brooding and maybe moody. And so yeah, it's at its core, when I'm at my healthiest, I'm a very healthy social introvert. I know I got really deep in the weeds there, but it's there. So thinking about how I can get up in front of people and do things, and I was talking to Sue about it, and I mentioned, I said, I think another thing that, besides the whole, you know, I can do social interaction, I can be friendly and outgoing and be around people, even though it's draining me slowly from the inside. I think another thing that helps an introvert be able to like get up on stage is really the lack of social interaction. When I'm preaching, I'm not having to carry on conversations. I'm up there talking and people are listening. The same thing with telling jokes. I can get up on stage and I can tell some stories and tell some jokes. And even though people are laughing and they're engaging that way, I'm not having conversations. And so it's not that they're draining me or taking anything away from me. So there's really a bit of isolation when you're on that stage, that I guess I don't feel as drained as when I'm in a social environment. So even though I loved sitting there at the table with Beth and Sue and Mark and Brian and Kirsten maybe, his wife, it's the first time I met them, so I may have screwed that name up, sorry. It was, even though I enjoyed that table time, it was much more draining to sit there and have the table time and have the talk and the stories and the interaction than it ever was getting up in front of the 100 or so people that were at this gala and telling 15 minutes worth of jokes. That did not bother me at all. And so I think that's it. I think that, so we were saying, hey, how can you preach? How can you tell jokes if you're an introvert? Well, when I'm a healthy introvert, I can do that, because I'm being a 7. I'm being the enthusiast. If you ever see me becoming a recluse and taking time by myself and really not wanting to be around people, then there's a chance I might have one of two things. Either my bucket is empty and I've got to step away and recharge, which is what I'm doing right now, by kind of taking a little bit of time away up here in the mountains, or I'm in a bad place. I'm in a bad mood. I've done something and that perfectionist kicks in and it didn't go the way I thought it would. And I beat myself up about it. Even like Saturday night, I want to be the perfect comedian. And so it's when I was up there telling jokes and I was telling these stories, I knew I missed a couple of things. Nobody listening would have ever known it because it went, I think, pretty smooth. But in my head, it's really weird. I'm up there telling a joke, and in my head, I'm thinking, dang, I missed that one joke. That would have been really good. So it's almost like two brains are having this conversation at once as I'm telling the joke. It's kind of a weird thing that happens when you're up on stage like that. But I did. I sat down, and I'm just like, my first reaction was, that was not good. And, the table was very gracious. My friends I was with and Beth, they're like, oh, that was great. That was great. But you never know. They just tell you stuff. And I leaned over to Beth. I was like, just please be honest with me. How was it? She was like, no, it was good. But, it's, I don't know. When I preach, I like to find people who I can tell are paying attention and I'll make eye contact with them as I'm looking around the room. And I focus on them, as my eyes bounce around the congregation or the room, because that keeps me going. I'm like, okay, at least what I'm saying makes sense. I've not kind of developed that yet in comedy. I'll see people laughing and smiling and having a great time, but I'll find the people who aren't laughing. And I'm just like, they're just sitting there like Stonewall. And I'm just like, ugh, like they hate me. And it gets in my head. And it's that unhealthy one starts coming out. Like, hey, if you were a better comedian, you could have made that guy laugh or that woman laugh. I told Beth it was pretty funny. It was a gala, so they had all these tables set up. And here, I said I wasn't even going to talk about this. I was going to wait till Beth. But anyway, you get it now. So you're getting the whole gala story. But they had all these tables set up, 6 to 8 people around every table. Tables were round. So they had a clear space up front where I would go or whoever was up there speaking, they had an MC. They did some recognition of people who had helped raise money or volunteered at the shelter. It was really a nice night of all kinds of stuff. So I had this space up front where I was, and there was a table dead center. There was a guy who sat dead center of that table, who, if he had turned his chair around, he would have been sitting, staring right at me. If he turned his chair around. He didn't. He stared, like he never turned his chair. So his back was to me the entire show. It was the weirdest thing. Like everybody else in that place had turned their chairs so that they could face forward and see me, but not this guy. This guy sat there staring in the same direction I would be staring, like he had eyes in the back of his head to see me. It was so bizarre. And I just kept looking at that guy like, what is he doing? Like, he can't turn around. Like, does he hate comedy that much? So that was kind of odd. That was a funny part of the evening. I found out later, the next day, another friend of mine, we'll call him Ross. Ross's parents actually had some friends that went, and they were there that night. And they came back and told Ross's parents how much they enjoyed me. And so I asked Ross, I was like, so did they know I was going to be there ahead of time or not? Like, did they know the connection? And he was like, oh yeah, and Dad told him that you were going to be doing comedy there. I'm like, well, why didn't they come tell me? Like, why didn't they make that connection? So again, Ross is like, oh, they loved you. But it's that self-doubt. It's that it creeps into your head. And in my mind, I'm like, if they really liked me, they would have came up to me and introduced themselves and been like, hey, we're friends with Ross's parents. But they didn't. And so I don't know. I half believe Ross. I half don't. But so yeah, so that was my Saturday night. It was fun. They raised a bunch of money for the shelter. It was great. It was great. It was just a really nice evening. And it got Beth's wheels turning. I think her and Sue might be thinking about a way we could do a gala for our Re3 Hope Center and raise some money that way. But anyway, I don't know. But it was really an outstanding evening, and I absolutely loved it. But that's how, as an introvert, I can do it, is I'm either in a healthy space or I can embrace the Enneagram 7, the enthusiast, or it's okay because I feel isolated up there on stage because I'm not having to talk to people. I'm going to spoil one of my jokes, but in the whole conversation or stories that I tell about how Beth and I are different. And I'm talking about how as an introvert, extrovert, we're different. I say, Beth's an extrovert. She gets her energy from being around people. I'm an introvert. I get my energy from leaving people. And then I say, Beth suffers from FOMO, fear of missing out. But I enjoy JOMO, joy of missing out. And sometimes life is like that. Sometimes I do not mind if I'm not invited somewhere. That does not break my heart. I do not feel rejection. I definitely like picking and choosing where I get to go and what I get to do. But everything I've been reading, I've read a lot on comedy. I've watched so many YouTube videos of stand-up comics doing interviews, talking about comedy. I don't know, like self-doubt thing is real. And I've battled that for many, many, many years as a pastor and preacher, but I've kind of got over that. But I guess because this is new, it's kind of reopened those wounds and the self-doubt. I had someone reach out to me and ask if I did birthday parties. And I was like, well, it depends. Like, what's the party? And I don't think you want me at Chuck E. Cheese for an 8-year-old. I don't know if that kid's going to understand marriage. But they said they were celebrating a birthday of someone turning 60. She said it was a 60, it would be a 60-year-old male African American. And there would be about 75 guests at the party. And they were wanting me to do like 45 minutes of comedy. And so she was asking if I was available and what my rate would be. And I struggled. I'm like, that's an unusual, that's a unique crowd. Like, I don't know if my humor would, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to stereotype anybody, but I'm not someone who I think of that if I was throwing a birthday party for a 60-year-old African-American gentleman we'd be like, oh, we've got to get Mike Giannopoulos for this. I just don't know if that's it, but I was flattered that she reached out. And so, I told her I was available and gave her a rate and never heard anything again. And so then that doubt creeps in. I'm like, was I too expensive? Did she look up some comedy stuff and then realize I wasn't very funny? Like, what is it? And so, and it may just be she got busy. It may be that she sent 3 or 4 comedians the same email and was just trying to determine who would be their best fit. I don't know. But so, yeah, I did get that thrown out to me this past weekend. I also had another, and I am not going to say where this is yet because I'm still undecided if I would take this job or not. But I did have another place reach out to me and say, hey, we're looking to start booking some of our events for 2027. We're thinking about doing a comedy night. Would you be interested? What is your rate? And so I emailed them back and told them. And I told Beth what it was and where it was. And she was just like, oh my, yeah. She was like, you're not going to do it, are you? And I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of crazy and fun. Like, I don't know. So we'll see. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it on that cliffhanger. So if at some point this place reaches back out and they did respond, I replied to them and said, I'd be open to talking to you guys about it. And this is my rates. And this is where I think I would fit well in something that you were doing. And they replied back to me today and was just like, sounds great. We're going to run it through our committee and we'll let you know. I was like, all right. So I may have something so outrageous next year doing comedy that it's going to be fun. It's going to be shockingly fun, but we'll just leave it there for right now. Other things that are going on. We have started rewatching 2 television shows. One is Ted Lasso. Beth and I watched Ted Lasso. We watched it with Joshua. We watched it with Jacob. I think we've watched the whole series twice. Well, now Maria's wanting to watch it because the new season of Ted Lasso comes out, I think tomorrow, sometime this week. So season 4. And so she wanted to watch it. So we've started watching Ted Lasso again with her. We're now into the 2nd season. And it is a great show. There's a lot of language. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. It's Apple TV show. There's one character in particular, Roy Kent, who, man, he doesn't say a sentence without saying a cuss word. So just be warned about that. You don't want to watch it with small kids, or maybe you have one of those filter systems that filters out some of the language. But just as far as story, as far as funny, as far as heartwarming, feel good, it may be the best series of all time that does that. Like every episode feels like a nice warm hug. And I know it came out during COVID, and that's why it was so immensely popular, I think, because people were so beaten down by COVID and they were able to watch Ted Lasso and it made them have hope It made them feel good about humanity and people. And I'm telling you, it holds up. 6 years later, it holds up. It's still such a great show. Great characters, great character arcs and stories. Just it's just a really good feel-good show. And like I said, one of the best I've ever seen that makes you feel that way. The other show we're watching is the total opposite of that. It's not a feel-good show. In fact, Beth and I actually gave up watching the show after about 5 or 6 seasons because it felt so hopeless. And that show is The Walking Dead. Walking Dead came out. Everybody on Earth should know what The Walking Dead is right now. Zombie apocalypse. You know, it came out a long time ago. I think it ran for around 11 seasons. It's had 3 or 4 spinoffs. Hit show worldwide, a worldwide phenomenon. And we watched, man, every week we'd have watch parties. We loved it, just ate it up. But it got to the point where, I mean, it's a dark show. I mean, there's death. It's people trying to survive not just zombies, but eventually other humans and kind of society as a whole. And there's a lot there as far as every man and woman for themselves. And what is the scale of good and evil look like now that the world has kind of come to an end, so to speak? And what is right and wrong? Who decides these things? You know, where do your morals lie? But anyway, we were looking for something new to watch, and we just kind of mentioned it to Josh, and Josh was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. And so we are on season 3 now. We blew through season 1, season 2. We're on season 3, which is probably the season where it really took off. And that's the season where the survivors are at the prison, and there's the first real big antagonist in the show outside of a zombie. The governor is introduced. And so you have survivors versus the governor and his people in Woodbury. It's so good. Man, it's so good. But it is dark, and it's the opposite of Ted Lasso. And maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe we need to watch an episode of The Walking Dead, chase it with an episode of Ted Lasso so we feel good before we go to bed at night. I will tell you this funny story. One time, I was doing a sermon at church. This was not Re3, a previous church I was at. I was doing a sermon, and I used as an illustration The Walking Dead. And I was using it in terms of church people. Like, how many of us, and I used the illustration I talked about here, The Walking Dead. These people don't know they're dead. They've died. They've come back to life. They're going through the motions as far as just walking around aimlessly. But they're not alive, like they're not healthy. And I talked about that in terms of what it means in a church. And yeah, man, you might have 500 people on your church membership, but how many of them are actually alive? You know, how much more are dead than alive? And so I did it. I thought it was a great illustration. The next morning, I had a lady, this was on Sunday, obviously, Sunday morning. The Walking Dead came on Sunday nights. I had a lady reach out to me Monday morning and said, hey, can I stop by your office? I want to talk to you about something. I was like, sure. So she was a church member. She stopped by, and she's like, I just want to tell you, I had never really heard of The Walking Dead until you used it in your sermon. And I thought it was a great sermon analogy. And I went home and I saw The Walking Dead was coming on, and I thought, well, I'm going to tune it on and see what it's like. And she was appalled. She could not believe The Walking Dead was what it was. I mean, I don't know what she thought it was going to be. It's humans running from zombies and killing them and having interpersonal conflict and all this stuff. But she said she had to turn it off. It was so, in her mind, so horrific. And she could not believe that a pastor would watch a television show like that. So she read me the riot act, told me how wrong I was, what I was doing was sinful, and I needed to repent. And she quit the church. She never came back to church again. She quit our church because I watched The Walking Dead. True story. I'm telling you, church people are crazy. It's a wonder I made it 30 years. Like, like people are like, I've taken this sabbatical right now. And I've had a couple of people be like, why do you need a sabbatical? Because I've had 30 years of knuckleheads like that. Now, there's some great people I've had in churches, but the majority are knuckleheads. And man, I know how Moses felt. I did he had to lead these knuckleheads for 40 years through the desert, and the Israelites complained the whole time. And I'm sure he was just like, yeah, like, God, can you just knock off a few 100,000 of them, please? And that's how I felt before. But you had a lady quit the church because I watched The Walking Dead. But anyway, we're back to Walking Dead. And so we're watching it. And so we have both those shows going on right now. Nothing else really new that we're watching. We just kind of stuck on the old stuff. So anyway, we'll see where that goes. Other than that, man, that's kind of the real quick of it. Looking at life right now through the eyes of just me and not Beth. But my plan is to be home tomorrow night, and Beth and I will get a podcast cranked up. We have a couple of good topics we want to throw out there. I want to say thank you to everyone who listened to episode 100. It did really, really well. It got a bunch of downloads. It got a bunch of good comments. We got a lot of good comments, emails or text messages of people how much they enjoyed it. So thank you so much for making the first 100 episodes so fun. If you would like to contribute to the show, if you're like to be a sponsor, please reach out and let us know. I finally started sending out sponsorship requests to companies to see if anybody would like to sponsor their show on Hey, Are You Still There? We'll see. We have a couple different price ranges, and I think it's good advertising. I mean, I really do. And it's from people, Beth and I will plug it and we'll give it a try. And what we're doing is we're trying to target audiences or target businesses that we love. So that way we're not just on here reading a script about something that we would never use, that we can say, hey, you know what? We eat at this restaurant, or we go to this shop, or we buy this certain brand of material, or whatever it may be, this thing. And we love it. And we think you will too. We want to be able to personally endorse everything that comes through as a sponsor. So now that we have 100 episodes in, I'm ready to get some sponsorships rolling. So if you have know someone that has a business that would like to sponsor, please send them our way. I would love to talk to them about that. Please subscribe, share it, comment, leave us a review. All of those things we can be found. Obviously, we have a website, heyareyoustillthere.com. All of our episodes are on there. You can also tune into Spotify or Apple. Pretty much every podcast service on earth we're on. We're even on YouTube. So you can log on to the Hey, Are You Still There? Just look that up on YouTube. We're there, not in video form, but in audio form. You can listen there also. So there's no excuse. Everybody can listen, completely free. And we appreciate you coming along this ride with us. So once again, this has been Mike without Beth this week, but I promise you she'll be back. And like I said, we may even throw an episode together this week so we can get 2 out this week, because I know a bunch of people will miss her. But anyway, this has been Mike, and this has been another episode of Hey, Are You Still There?